Welcome back to part two of this heart-shaped wine glass theme painting for the Left-Handed Bandit mobile paint party experience. In part one of our video, we focused mostly on the background by giving our entire painting a base layer of paint so that the next steps coming up, acrylic paint, can stick to the canvas just a bit easier. Believe it or not, we are more than 50% through this painting. The background was the majority of the work. The foreground will be a touch easier for us. We're going to be adding a lot of texture to this foreground and some different color mixtures and color mixing. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to be using primarily our average size paintbrush for the next remaining steps of this painting. We're going to be mostly working with our red, our white, and our black paint. You can feel free and add more differences and different things to the backgrounds towards the end of the painting, but for these next several steps, we're going to focus primarily on the colors red, black, and white. What we're going to do first is we're going to start with our red paint, and we're going to gork in our red paint to our wine glasses and fill in our actual wine. So I'm starting on the canvas on the right this time, but everything I do on my right, I am doing on my left. It's just looking like the mirror effect. I'm adding in my red paint. It's that red wine. I'm going a little thick with this. I do not have to be as smooth as I was with the background, but I'm adding in some thicker paint. It's because I want to mix in some other colors in a second, and I need that paint to still be nice and wet when I mix those other colors in. So I'm moving up to my heart towards the top. I do have some globs and some thicker areas of paint that are very noticeably visible, and that's okay for the sake of these next couple of steps to slow the process of drying. So now I have my half a heart filled in, and I have my wine glass filled in. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take the excessive red paint that is on my paintbrush, wipe both sides off on my paper towel, get it nice and cleanish. What I'm going to do immediately is I'm going to grab just a touch, a very faint touch of black paint, and I'm going to add some black paint into the mix towards the edge of the wine, because red wine isn't the same color as Kool-Aid. It's a bit darker. So we're going to mix in some black to this red. We are not, I repeat, we are not painting all of our red paint with the black. We are leaving some of that red paint very visible and making some details. We're going to do that here. We're going to do that up here in our half a heart shape. Again, we're going to leave some of that red, that first red, very visible while we give it some contrast, because again, red wine does not have the same tone as Kool-Aid. All right? So now we have our darker details in. And before I end there, I want to add some highlights. I just did my black paint, give it some darker contrast. When I add highlight, I'm rinsing my paintbrush off in water, wiping both sides off with my paper towel. I'm going to go in and touch some white, just a faint touch of white, and mix in some white to this wine. So now I want to be able to see a difference between some pinks, some whites, some reds, and some of that black that we added on to create that deeper red. What this is doing is this is creating contrast and blending effects for our painting. So the key is to go back and forth to your different colors and make sure you have a nice amount of white that is visible, a nice amount of pink that is visible, a nice amount of that original red that is visible, and some of that dark color visible, because you can see in areas like here where I have my white, that's visible. It actually creates some interesting effects on my painting. So it's okay to go thicker with the texture, as I mentioned, because this is creating more variety in my painting. Now I have this glass on the right filled in with wine. I'm going to do the exact same thing on my left. So I'm going to jump over to my canvas on my left. At this point, the canvas on the left should already be filled in. I am painting by myself, therefore, I'm going to have to fill this in myself. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill in my wine. Nice thick amount of wine. Thick amount of paint for a lot of red wine. Fill that in. You can keep the globs going. The globs create more texture. I'm going to fill in these half of heart shapes up towards the top with red paint. Same thing I did on the other side. Red paint first. And carry that. Got a couple of drips and drops here and here. Got a great deal of red paint. I'm going to wipe that excess red paint off with my paper towel. I'm going to go in with just a touch of black paint. I'm going to add black paint to the mix. Again, not turning this entire amount of red paint into black, but leaving some of that red visible and creating some contrast with that black color. So leave some of that the way it should be. Now I have that black filled in. Next thing I'm going to do is rinse off my paintbrush, get the excess water out. And from here, I'm going to grab some white paint and mix some white paint in the same way I did on the other side of the canvas. I'm going to create a mixture and blends as well as a contrast amount of color effects by mixing in some white, creating some effects here. Go up to my heart, do the exact same thing here. Leave some of those thick. It can dry nice and thick and still look very, very pretty. Make sure you have a fair amount of differences showing in your colors. It shows 3-dimension, it shows variety. It makes your painting overall just look so much better. The last thing we need to do is add just our final details and make those glasses just a bit more visible. Looks like I'm running out of white paint again. That must be my favorite color. I'm going to add outlines to my glasses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a little bit of black paint and white paint together, just a little bit, and create a very light gray as my first color. And I'm simply going to go over those black outlines with gray. That's our first step. So we're covering up our black outlines with gray paint. We've mixed we've mixed white and black together to make gray. Covering up our gray Sharpie lines. And we can't forget the lip of the glass. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Taking my gray outlines, or my black outlines, and making them gray. All the way down to the stem. Now we have gray. I'm going to rinse off my brush. I'm going to go into my black next, and right next to my gray, and in some areas I can even cover up that gray, I'm going to add a solid black outline to my painting. Now, each and every time I grab a little bit of black paint, I smooth both sides of my paintbrush out of my black. And what that does is smoothing out your paintbrush creates a nice flat paintbrush to work with. So if you turn it in different directions like I'm doing right now, it'll give you different effects on your line work. So here I'm going to go right up against that gray with a nice solid black line. It's a little wonky, but I'll take it. I'm lying, I'm not gonna take it. I'm just gonna smooth that out just a little bit. Get all parts of the glass, lips. Gonna go on the other side, do the same thing. Got that lip earlier. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to continue to work with black just a little bit more, and I'm going to create a couple of shine effects. Quick little smears and shine effects to show that that glass is transparent. Not too much, because the white is going to handle those details for me. Just a couple. A little bit in the stem of the glass as well. And now I'm rinsing off my paintbrush. And I'm going to add my final outlines to my glass, giving some slight details in white. So I can have some shine marks here, adding globs of curved white paint. Again, I'm curving big globs of paint to create those shine marks, making my glass look a bit three-dimensional, and adding to the overall effect of the painting. It's mixing with some of those other colors that are already there, which is a good thing. I can add some more details in my line if I like real fast. A couple of more dots and drips. It's completely up to you. Gives it more of a painterly effect. Get this lip area over here. And then last but not least, I'm just going to add a little bit of a darker black line variation to my heart, just to bring it out just a little bit. And just a little bit of black line, like a little bit in there. Doesn't have to be a ton. Last but not least, I'm going to simply sign my painting. So that is that for our heart-shaped wine glass. So feel free to rewind this video, repeat steps, add more white lines, add more black lines. It will make a difference, but aside from that, I hope that you've enjoyed painting with me. Be on the lookout for more designs. Check out my YouTube channel. Check out my website, lefthandedbandit.com, for more merchandise and apparel and artwork from a Western New York-based artist and the different things I provide. So I hope to paint again with you in the future. And thanks again.